Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Foundations of Business Management 1104. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk today about marketing strategy, and really figuring out ways to provide value to customers. Very, very important aspect from a marketing perspective. You've heard me say it before. I guess I'll say it. One of my favorite chapters, partly because this is where I live. My graduate work was in marketing. The last 12 to 14 years, I guess going on 15 years now, has been in marketing. And so I truly enjoy the value that marketing brings to an organization. It is, and as we'll talk about today, it's more than what our assumptions are. Learning objectives, as always, be sure that you're reading the textbook. Before you read the textbook, take a look at the learning objectives. I always go back to the learning objectives after I read, just to make sure that I hit the key points, key takeaways, and being able to identify the outcomes of these learning objectives too. So as you recall in chapter 8, and we've sort of been building on this as we've been after chapter 8, organizations conduct strategic planning. Again, the vision statement within the strategic plan, the mission statement, why does the organization exist? Why does the organization, or what value does the organization bring to the marketplace? These are all important aspects, including the SWOT analysis. Now, why do I bring this up again? Why are we recapping the strategic plan? Because marketing is very, very involved in executing the strategic plan from a revenue growth and business growth standpoint. So we start to look at how to grow a business. This would be a great opportunity for you to take a couple of minutes and think about an organization. How do they grow a business? Now, we've several modules and several chapters now, we have talked about how organizations can grow. But I'd like for you to pause the video right here, get out a piece of paper or type on in a Word document. What do you think an organization can do to grow a business? Okay, so pause here. We'll see you on the other side. Awesome. So hopefully you've got some notes here, a couple of minutes. How does a business grow? Again, we've talked about it a few times, but it really gets down to understanding the brand. So that strategic plan has to match the identity, the external identity. So there has to be this pathway from who we are, who we think we are as an organization internally, people, processes, intellectual property, this sense of competitive advantage that we've talked about. What does that look like? And then being able to externally communicate that brand, and that's called brand building. Certainly building up product awareness. What is the product? What does the product do? What problems does the product solve in the marketplace? Remember, in entrepreneurship, we talked about it. It's not the product, it's the people. It's not the product, it's the problems that we're trying to solve. And so product awareness is an important aspect of marketing. I think, in your generation, growing up with social media, that engagement is critically important for a brand. They have to be able to, what do they stand for? Who are they? What are they about? What do they get involved in? Taking that product awareness, explaining it to the market, getting feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, understanding what that looks like. So that's engagement. Trying to be and aspiring to be leaders in product or service. Now, what does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, if we're solving problems and we are creating value, then we should be taking on a leadership, knowledge-based position in the market, whether it's our product or service. We want people to come to us as the organization to be that leader. We want people to recognize, when you say mobile phone, who's the product leader? When you think of, a coffee shop, who is the leader? When you think of a hotel brand, a car brand, a restaurant, who is the product leader with that. Lead generation, we'll talk about in a moment, mostly from a sales standpoint. And at the end of the day, and to grow a business, you have to have customers. Now, I would argue certainly customer acquisition is important. The more customers we acquire, the higher probability of growing our revenue from that standpoint. But it's also customer retention as well. We got to love the customers that we do have and not forget about those as we grow. The American Marketing Association, I share this slide because this is a slide that you should, or this is an organization that you should think about, especially if you're in marketing as a primary major or even as a secondary major. It is a national organization made up of professionals all over the country. I'm a member of the AMA, have been for 10 or 12 years. As a student, you can, they have job boards, internship boards. But the American Marketing Association defines marketing as the activities, set of institutions, processes for communicating, delivering, exchanging offers. And here's the key word: that have value, okay? That have value. So very, very important. You can see the stakeholders there, whether it's customers, clients, partners, or society at large. Now, when we think of marketing, and I used to ask students to write down, what do you think of marketing? And many of them, you had creativity, advertising, selling, and that's, fairly intuitive. That's what we think of when it comes to marketing, but it's so much more than that. Like, there's a lot more fun things to do in addition to the fun things of advertising and selling. But it gets to satisfying customer needs, meeting or exceeding customer expectations. And that could be in product development, having a product manager, brand management, defining its features and benefits, setting the price. So doing a competitive research, competitive landscape, looking at benchmarking, taking in data, and then setting the price, right? So analyzing all of that intelligence, all that knowledge, all of that data coming in, and then being able to determine what price should it be offered at. The target market, which we'll talk about in just a moment. We just talked about, product and brand awareness. So making sure that they're aware. Kind of an important aspect, but is getting people to buy it. So marketing and sales working together. Certainly having the marketing strategy, the sales pull into that is very important. Certainly delivery. A lot of times, I think in industry, we get caught up that marketing say, well, that's operations problem, or that is operations situation. As a marketeer, as a marketing professional, I truly think delivery and how we deliver it, both logistically and through marketing channels, that is very, very important, and it's an important aspect of marketing. Certainly sales and trade relations come into that. And then managing relationships, which I always enjoy doing, making sure that customers, again, we exceed customer expectations. So the marketing concept, you can see here, determining what customers or potential customers need. So what is the gap in the marketplace? Gaps, trends, and problems we talked about in entrepreneurship. Great potential here, great responsibility for marketing to understand what is the gap, what is the market need for customers, and then developing those products or services to meet that problem, to meet that need. And then the other part is engaging the entire organization to satisfy customers. And what does that mean? Well, I can tell you from a practical standpoint, what we did as an organization is, think about it. The person answering the phone has a role in marketing. What do I mean by that? Well, the calming voice, the welcoming there. Let me help you. Building that brand. Soon as a customer walks into a store, as soon as they walk into a manufacturing plant, which is my background, as soon as they walked into the door of our facility, what did the lobby look like? What did the reception area look like? Was the guest, he or she, welcome? I would even argue outside, what was the signage? What was the branding? What did the plant, the manufacturing, the footprint, what did it look like? Once they're on the manufacturing floor and they're talking to colleagues, was there a spirit of enthusiasm, or was there just this, I hate to be here moment? And so, and I could go on and on and on. I think you get the point where everyone that touches the product, touches the customer, is involved in marketing. It's important to build that brand, build that service leadership, and it starts at the top and goes left to right, all the way to the bottom. Incredibly important. In marketing, who are we serving? We're all consumers. We buy something. I was just at breakfast today buying something. I'm a consumer. You're a consumer. These are buyers who want the product for personal use. The industrial market, which is where I came from, these are buyers who want the product for use in making other products. So for example, we made handles, knobs, trim for the appliance industry. So the products that we made went onto stoves and refrigerators. We also made widgets. We made these, what we called insulators. These are products that actually are in every building that we're in, that help with electricity. They help with arc resistance. Basically, when you turn on a switch, the place doesn't burn down. We made those products. That's an industrial market. And so the products we made went into other products. And then this is where we start to talk about B2C, which is business to consumers, B2B, which is business to business. Those are represented by the consumer and industrial market. Here in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, many of you are from the Northern Virginia area, Maryland, and over DC. And so governments, and so there's a business to government side. We have a lot of our alumni that work, whether in consulting or in suppliers to the defense industry or other government. So that's B2G, business to government. Part of my graduate work at the University of Virginia and then on to Southern New Hampshire University really focused on the fact that it's about humans. It's about people, okay? And so we got into this B to H, and people would scratch their head and say, what is that? What does B to H mean? And, it's business to human beings. I don't care whether you're in the consumer market, whether you're in government, or whether you're in the industrial market. There are people that are going to be buying those products, whether it's for their own internal use or for their organization's use, okay? And they have to be taken care of. They have to be, if they have questions, they need answers. We have to be able to drive that. There's a decision-making process that goes into play. That's human. That's the sales cycle, the sales people. So again, B to H, business to human beings. Remember that as we go through today. Market segmentation. So you hopefully read about this. I think it makes good sense. Again, we're looking at common characteristics. What makes someone buy something? Why are they looking to make that decision? Is there a pain point in their life? Or is it based on just who they are, their demographics? Is it on geography? I always tell the story, a snowblower, right? A mechanical snowblower is going to sell very, very well in Boston. That geographic market, that buyer there has a need for a snowblower. That snowblower is not going to sell very well in Miami, all right? So geographically important. Lowe's and Home Depot, they have to think about that. The grilling season, the outdoor season, geography and behavior. Okay, so patio sets, we see this. Outdoor living now has taken off. Outdoor living in the Northeast, right, the Midwest, Chicago area, it's a short time, right? Versus down south, Atlanta, Houston, over to the Florida region. And so what do I mean by that? There's probably a higher turnover of those products and those needs because there's more demand from that. Demographics. So, I'm a 52-year-old male. My decisions are much, much different than my 69-year-old mother, right? Demographics, very, very important to understand. We can also cluster them, like, for example, Starbucks. Starbucks typically are in higher income population centers. And so that we refer to those segments as clusters from a market segmentation standpoint. You'll start to look at car dealerships, luxury dealerships. If you look at, for example, there's not a luxury dealer in the New River Valley because it's a small cluster of people. Go down to Charlotte, go to Raleigh, you'll find all the brands there because there's a cluster of those higher income consumers in those areas. Niche, that's a very small customer group. They're looking at a specific area. So like kosher foods, extreme luxury items, some demographic areas will be there too. And these are typically people that are willing to pay more to have their need met. Very important aspect. All right, let's look at the marketing mix, the 4 Ps: promotion, product, place, and price. Many of you probably know this. You may have learned it in high school, but promotion, product, place, price. Actually, you start out there with, you got to have a product. Where are we going to put it? Whether it's online through an e-commerce, whether it's in a physical environment. I talked about earlier, setting the price. Does the market set the price? Do you look at a competitive analysis? What does that look like? Is it cost-based? We're going to look more about the pricing part of this in chapter 15. And then we've got to promote it. This is where the advertising comes in. This may be social media influencing the website, the way it's looked. There's so many different ways at the promotion side. And certainly as you work through your Pamplin journey, you'll actually take a much bigger dive into marketing with a whole semester long class. Now, what's interesting is over the last 5 to 8 years, the marketing mix has changed. Marketing itself has changed, with the invention and the use of the internet since the late 1990s, early 2000s, and certainly social media over the last 10 to 12 years taking off. There's a whole new look at the marketing mix, and it's now the 4 Cs. And so you can see on the left-hand side, this is the traditional from the 70s look at the Ps, now looking now at the Cs. So product now, again, it's not about the product, it's about the people, consumer, right? The place now is, instead of a physical place, maybe it's more about convenience. How do we make sure that, that the consumers have what they need when they need it? I would argue that because of the invention of websites, e-commerce, businesses now can be open 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. Okay, what does that mean? It means they're open and above and beyond what they normally used to be. And it's now based on cost. And I love this piece that especially for entrepreneurs, small business owners, but quite frankly, any business should be cost focused. If you're cost focused, you'll be able to actually deliver the best value for the consumer, the customer. I come from a world of operations. I was an operations person before I was a marketing person. And so once I became a marketing person, and I was always told by engineering and operations, raise the price, raise the price, raise the price. Well, we can do that. That's absolutely raise the price, top line revenue. But as an operations, why don't we look at lowering the cost? Lowering the cost could actually benefit everyone. It's a win-win. Helps, gain additional profit margins for the manufacturer, for the organization, of which could be applied to the consumer or the customer. So cost is important. And then it's now about communication. How do we not only talk to the customer, but how do we listen and learn from the marketplace? How do we listen and learn about what the consumer, the customer is struggling with? We get empathy, we bring empathy and design thinking into it. Whole nother subject, whole nother course. The whole point of that is it's not necessarily pushing. It's about the word engagement, which means 2 ways of communication. So yes, we want to talk about who we are, what we're about, share all of that. Here's our brand, here's the features and benefits. But really to understand the consumer and what chaos that they're going through is to really ask some good questions and then listen and learn, because guess what? It may open us up to an iteration of a current product or service or create a whole new product. Again, gaps, trends, and problems. So again, left-hand side, traditional P's, right-hand side, the 4 C's, very, very important. All right, place. We're going to talk now about what showrooming is. Showrooming is a new term in the last 5 years or so. And this is customers turning physical stores into showrooms. So for example, I'm guilty of this. I don't buy much online, but when I do, I want to touch, feel, smell, taste what I'm going to purchase, especially if it's over a certain threshold. So for example, I have bought a computer online, but I can tell you, I went to Best Buy and I was opening, shutting, touching, feeling, smelling that computer for an hour or so, talking to. Now, I did go back and buy it online from Best Buy, actually got a better deal there than I would have in the store, but you get the point. You may go and, find some clothes or apparel, try them on in the store, and then actually go and buy online. So interesting to understand now what's happening. You look at like Sears and Kmart. These are stores I grew up with. I know that you're aware of and grew up with them too. They're not around any longer. They were actually one store, became one company towards the end. JCPenney, another one. So now there's all of this real estate, right? All these abandoned storefronts out there. And what are we going to do with them? What could happen? I don't know if you've been to a mall recently. Much different place, much different place. And so retailers have to understand how they can utilize this. Now, it's interesting. There are some Best Buys. In fact, I think the next article here of how they're going to start to turn these physical retail shops. Okay, this was just a year and a half, 2 years ago, of how they're experimenting of turning their retail hubs into shipping hubs, which I think makes good sense. Close off part of the store, and then that becomes a great shipping place. And so that's an awesome way of using showrooming. Market research. Now, what's interesting is if I was to have a room full of marketing professionals, let's say I had 100 of them, and I said, is market research your favorite thing? Raise your hand. I bet I would only have 1 or 2, if that. And that's just coming, again, that's anecdotal. It's coming just from my experience. This is something that takes time. It's not easy. I would say too that, we have assumptions, we have hypotheses as marketeers, as companies. You have the strategic plan. This is what we want to do. This is our aspiration. Well, let's go get some market intelligence to see if that's even realistic. Can it be done? What are we going to look at? Product development. And so it is not fun, but can be. May not seem rewarding, but can be incredibly rewarding. Definitely could bring value to the organization and a huge return on investment. So the whole point of this is never assume when it comes to market research. Many companies will just sit in their office spaces and they will make assumptions. Well, we've been doing it this way for 10 years. This is the way our organization has always done it. We know our customers better than anyone. I would say right now, for example, enterprise rental car, their market has changed dramatically in the last 2 years. Remember, they went through a period of time, no one traveled, people were quarantined, they stayed home. They had a glutton of cars, glutton of inventory, had to lay some people off. Now people are coming back, but guess what? Not many cars available, right? So, and people are traveling differently than they used to. Maybe, the type of vehicle that they're asking for might be, instead of a traditional gas, maybe now they're asking for hybrids or electric vehicles. But there's not much inventory. So the whole point of that is never, ever assume, and understand that just because of what you had in the past may not be what you have in the future. Blockbuster, a great example. BlackBerry and the iPhone, their mobile phone differently. So, again, market research, who are the customers? What do they like? What would they like to have changed? Where will they buy? Where do they want to buy it? Are they online buyers? Are they physical buyers? And at the end of the day, setting the price, will enough people buy it, to make a profit for the organization? There's some different research tools. I'm not going to get into these specifically. I think the textbook does a really nice job with this. My opinion is, or at least from my personal standpoint, I am surveyed out. I think if I get another survey, I'm going to vomit. And yet, sometimes here, for example, at Virginia Tech, what do? Surveys. Just send out a survey. Partly because we're a research-driven organization, which I get, I understand it. It is a pretty reasonably cost way of getting data. But I can tell you, as a recipient of surveys, I'm just tired. I'm absolutely tired. Now, if someone would say, hey, why don't you join me at 6:30? We're going to be in, room 256. You could get a $10 gift card, to Starbucks. Would you be willing to give some feedback? Sign me up. In fact, I would probably do it for free because they're going to ask me questions. I can freely deliver it. I like that. That's a personal interview. And I think, quite honestly, you get some open-ended questions, you get the emotions piece, time consuming, absolutely. And there has to be some interpretation. And guess what? You got to talk to people, right? And guess what? Most people don't like to talk to people. So that is a difficult one to do, our personal interviews. I think you get the most out of it, though, from that standpoint. You're going to do a focus group. We're going to talk about that in a moment. You're going to work on a focus group for lift data. Remember, and you went through this in your library research, so just to reiterate, remember secondary data when you're doing research are outside resources, whether that's purchase data like Nielsen, whether it's the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS. There's a lot of public and private sources. Can be amazing data. Got to look at how many were surveyed, or what's the population of the data look like. Then primary data is data created by you. It comes from you and or your team. And you can see there, whether it's surveys, personal interviews, or focus groups, that's your data. You own that data. That integrity, that data is you. I would say too, this is also where you don't just data dump. So market research isn't just saying, here's what I found, right? Market intelligence and market research, the market research piece is just, here's the data. Market intelligence, I think, takes the research and says, here's what I think we should do with it, right? So we analyze it, and then we want to make decisions based on that. So for example, market research might say, snowblowers not only sell in Boston, New York, but now they're starting to sell a little bit more in the Baltimore, DC area, right? That's what research shows. Well, let's start to put more product placement in that particular area. Let's start to advertise more in that particular area. Here you can see a focus group, again, just small group of consumers trying to get reactions to products. Could be, smell and color, touch. You can see there on the right-hand side, specific demographic that they're typically going after. In your focus group, you're going to be looking at lift, and as it pertains to an 18 to 23-year-old college student on a college campus, what are the problems that we have here at Virginia Tech when it comes to transportation, parking? We don't have any parking problems, right? There's no transportation problem. So what does that mean? Asking questions to understand. And so gathering that data in, interpreting that data, so what, who cares moment, right? Looking at the data, and then brainstorming ways to take that data and make the problems, the trends, the analyses. What could a company, in this particular example, Lyft, do differently to make their product more attractive or their service more attractive? Trademarks, I think you understand trademarks. These are, certainly, logos or symbols that represent a company or a product, and they have been legally registered through the Patent and Trade Office in DC, the PTO. So you'll see either a TM, and then once it goes from a trademark, And then the R is a registered trademark from there. Branding strategies, very important for you to understand here. So pay attention. I think, you know, a lot of times we ask you to read the textbook. That doesn't necessarily make you an expert, right? So let's talk about it. Private branding or private label is when a company makes a product and sells it to a retailer who then in turn resells it under its own name. So for example, when I go to Kroger, I might be buying the Big K product. I go to Food Line and it's the Food Line brand of seltzer or the Food Line brand of butter. That's private branding. Now, some of you may say that's generic branding. Actually, it's not. Generic branding is when there is no branding information on a product. It's only describing what's inside the product. You'll see this sometimes in pharmaceuticals. Think about all the advertising that goes on in pharmaceuticals. Well, there's typically a generic product that has absolutely no brand name. There's no advertising, there's no selling. And guess what? That product can sell at a much, much lower cost. In the military, meals ready to eat, MREs. So you're out in the field, going to be out there for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. Hard to make a full breakfast. You're not eating brunch on a Saturday out in the field. You're basically getting what you can get. They're called MREs, meals ready to eat. You tear open this bag. Inside that bag, there's another pouch. And in that pouch says peanut butter. Doesn't say Jif or Peter Pan, right? Just a packet and says peanut butter. Now, obviously, it's going to have the ingredients. It has to have the, FDA caloric, all the nutritional value, but there is absolutely no brand there. Then you go back in your bag and you pull out and it says crackers, right? That's it. It doesn't say Keebler crackers. It just says crackers. That's generic branding, okay? Manufacturing branding. And that's when a company sells one or more products under its own brand name. So, you look at, for example, Toyota, okay? Toyota is a manufacturer, but they have brands, right? Corolla, Camry, and they actually have a premium brand known as Lexus, different. Multi-branding is when the company assigns different brand names to different products. So, I always think of Hershey's, the Hershey's company, and think about all their different, products, the Good Bar, the Kit Kat, whatever they have. I'm making up names. That could be a Nestle brand, but you understand what I'm saying is the different brands and then different products. Got some examples of that coming up in a moment. So again, a brand is a word, letter, sound, or symbol that denotes the product. You look at generic branding, could just be cornflakes, all right? Then we look at private branding, would be Kroger cornflakes. Then you look at a manufacturer branding, Kellogg's cornflakes. Now, what's interesting about this particular example, I don't know this to be true, but could be, is that guess who makes all three of those? Kellogg's, right? So Kellogg's may make the generic branding of cornflakes, for a hospital or for the military. Maybe it's just a different grade, right? It's a little less quality, so they differentiate it from a manufacturing strategy. But that's it. Generic branding, cornflakes. That's it. It's on the box. There's nothing else. Cornflakes. Private branding, we go down to Kroger. Wow. And so why do we do this? Because for the consumer, there's a price differentiation. There's a quality expectation when you have different branding strategies. Here's a manufacturer branding example. So Unilever, you may recognize some of these brands. I use a number of these brands, whether it's Dove or Suave, Q-tips, Vaseline, are all used. You look up there in the upper left-hand corner, go to the ice cream aisle. Wow. All of those are Unilever brands, including our good friends. Remember Ben & Jerry's, the story of Ben & Jerry's? Unilever bought them. So, you can see here all the different branding strategies that can come of that. So multi-branding, Cheer, Tide, and Gain. Procter & Gamble owns those brands. That's multi-branding, Cheer, Tide, Gain. Multi-product then looks at Healthy Choice, which has soups, frozen dinners, and ice creams, different products. Kind has bars, clusters, ice creams, multi-product, all right? Hotel industry, we'll look more about this in the hospitality, tourism, and management but for HTM, real estate majors, quite frankly, any of you Pamplin majors, you'll see, where and why does branding strategies matter? And so whether it's Marriott, Hilton, or Hyatt, the three major players, they have basically this demographic, behavioral, psychographics, whether you're an extended stay, whether you want full service, perhaps you're a luxury person. Then they have this portfolio of brands. Now, arguably, their branding strategy came about through acquisitions. But still, we talked about this in the M&A on the mergers and acquisitions side. A lot of times through acquisitions, the company goes away that was acquired, but the branding, the reputation, the legacy of who they are, what they're about, will remain. Brand aspirations, remember brand equity. Consumers have a favorable product or service experience. Brand loyalty is they're committed to it. Okay, so having a perception is one thing, having a commitment is something else, right? And so I share some examples here. Toyota, our brand loyalty. I had 3 Camrys in 15 years. Dependability, reliability, ease of purchase, financing, whatever it was, I was very, very loyal to Toyota. Still would be. We're in this kind of supply chain issue. So I sold 2 years ago, and quite frankly, just haven't found what I'm looking for. But it will be a Toyota again moving forward. Hilton Honors. When I arrive at, whether it's Hilton Garden Inn, a Hampton Inn, a Hilton, a DoubleTree, they all know me because of my honors. Mr. Poff, welcome back. Thank you for being a Diamond member. Would you like your water now, or would you like it brought to your room? I get to park. I get to park up front because I'm an Hilton Honors member. Now, Starbucks, some of you, Starbucks every day. I know some friends of mine that are twice a day Starbucks, right? They could probably buy a vehicle based on how much they spend at Starbucks on an annual basis. That is commitment. That is loyalty. Now, for me, I'm not committed. I don't have brand loyalty to Starbucks. I'm there maybe once a quarter or every couple of months. I know my friends at Starbucks probably don't like to hear me say that. Now, I will say this, Starbucks has brand equity to me. Every time I'm there, it's a favorable experience. I take clients there. I'll meet friends there. But quite frankly, $4 for a tea is just too expensive for me, right? I don't frequent that brand. I'm not committed to that brand. So there's just some examples of brand equity, brand loyalty. Please understand this and be able to apply it. Retailers, so certainly an area that you need to read the textbook, understand, be able to apply them, understand the convenience side of this. So using the new marketing mix, the 4 C's, the convenience, but why, based on the aspirations of, why does a specialty store want to be a specialty store? They want to differentiate themselves, right? So you go to Runabout Sports. Runabout Sports, you walk in, they actually are welcoming you in the store. Typically, you're the only one in the store, but that's okay. Or if they're busy, they'll say, we'll be with you in just a moment, right? There's a greeting, there's a welcome. You can walk around. It's small, quaint. There's intimacy between you and the person servicing you. If I walked into Dick's Sporting Goods, I love Dick's Sporting Goods. I shop there fairly regularly. I'm not going to buy my shoes there. Why? Number one, I can't find anyone. They've got these shoes out there that look pretty, they look nice, but they never have my size. Try to find somebody to get that for me is ridiculous. 2 different aspirations, though, from a marketing engagement, a marketing sales strategy from there. So be able to understand it. And there's not a good, bad, or indifferent. There's not a right or wrong for a retailer. It's just, this is their strategic plan. This is their vision, their mission statements of who they are, what they're about. They're trying to meet a certain trend, or they're trying to meet a gap in the marketplace, right? That unmet need in the marketplace. That's what retailers try to do. So some good examples, please go through them in understanding. Promotion kind of moves us over a little bit to the sales side, with personal selling, which is the, driving the experience. I argue that in sales, it's about trust, credibility, and rapport. Think about that from your own perspective, your own experience. As you meet someone, as you're going to buy something, what does that look like? Do they just walk up to you and start dumping out features and benefits? Hey, guess what? I got a deal of the day, right? Welcome to Joseph A. Banks. You look like you're an extra large. How about just, how are you doing today? Welcome to our store. How's your day going, right? So building rapport, which then drives, okay, as the rapport is going, they can then drop nuggets of credibility into that. And so eventually there's some trust that's built. That doesn't necessarily always happen with one encounter or even two encounters. Sometimes it takes multiple touch points to drive that experience. Very, very important. You can see publicity and public relations with influencer marketing is important. Inbound marketing. So again, websites are open 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. That's important, but what are they coming to see? What's the call to action? Why should they even visit a specific website? And is there a way to capture who is there, whether it's through IP addresses, like a virtual salesperson, or is there a contact form so that they could be followed up on? Think about Virginia Tech and how many virtual visitors we have. Why are they visiting the website? Are they potential students? Are they existing students? Are they alumni? Is it an organization looking to place a donation? All of these are important aspects to understand, and that's what inbound marketing is all about. Customer relationship management, again, another area, never assume, never take anything for granted. Now, keep in mind, there is a outboundengine.com says it takes 5 times the cost to get a new customer versus keeping an existing one. I can tell you, coming from industry, I think that's a low number. I would argue it's probably 7 to 10 times. You get a new customer, we had to take an entire team in. You got to take the engineering, the quality, the sales, the marketing team in, or when they come to visit, you got to have everyone engaged. We don't just have to do that with existing customers. They knew who we were. You got a reputation. There's loyalty. There's equity. It's all about that. But just some different examples of customer relationship management. Never, ever take it for granted. Always give love, spread love to existing customers. I always say, actually, give them probably more love than new customers. These are people that have loyalty. There's some equity built up. Don't lose them, okay? Social media marketing and influencer marketing, you know this better than I do, okay? Has some positives, there's no doubt. If we see someone that we admire, that we really appreciate who they are, what they're about, we're probably going to listen to them, and we may actually do what they say, or follow what they're saying. And eventually we follow them enough, their influence on us helps us with our behaviors and our purchasing decisions. Certainly, and we're gonna learn about this if you do the Coke versus Pepsi case study, where influencer marketing can be short-term an incredibly positive thing. But if something negative happens, whether they say something, they do something, or even their loved ones say something or do something, could bring them down. And then guess what it does? It brings that brand, that organization down as well. So there's definitely some benefits, but risks along the ways too. So, again, when we get into the Coke versus Pepsi, there's 2 totally different paths when it comes, and strategies when it comes to influencer marketing with that. Definitely take a look at the video at the end of the chapter. I hope you've enjoyed chapter 14 and marketing. It is a fun chapter here at Virginia Tech. Marketing within Pamplin College of Business, one of the fastest growing majors. There is a video in the modules that you can learn more about the marketing programs and the marketing majors and minors here at Virginia Tech and the Pamplin College of Business. Please, please, please take a look at that video as well. With that, I'm going to close out chapter 14. We continue our journey. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. With that, take care of yourself. Talk to you soon.